Good morning, everybody. It is Monday, February 19th, 2024. It's time for Bible Reading Fellowship, formerly known as Morning Devotions. Peter, good morning, brother. We're going to pick up our reading this morning in 1 Kings 15. 1 Kings 15. John, good afternoon. Reading out of the Legacy Standard Bible, the LSB. If you don't have your own copy of this translation, you can open up a second tab in your computer. And in the search bar, type read, read.lsbible.org, read.lsbible.org. Lars, good morning. Hit enter when that page opens up. Type 1 Kings 15 in the search window. 1 Kings 15 in the search window. Hit enter, that'll bring up the text. Follow along as we read, and when we get to the end of the chapter, or the bottom of your screen there, just click on the right arrow. And that'll move you over to chapter 16. So, logged in a couple of minutes before the hour. We'll wait a couple of minutes, see if more of the regulars log in, and then we will get started. Morning, Sarah. Eunice, good afternoon. Hey, Lana, good morning. We'll give folks a couple more minutes, and then we're going to get started. Yeah, go ahead, Lana. If it looks like it's going to be a long answer, I'll probably answer after the reading, but if I can handle it relatively quickly, since I logged in early, we'll take care of it now. Be forewarned. Oh, that's ominous. That's ominous. Oh, hey, Bill. Oh my. No, I haven't studied a lot of a lot about covenant theology or new covenant theology. I have not. No, I would not. I would not. I would not be well versed in those. Yeah, light topic, right, Peter? Sorry. I wish I could help you, but I'm not. I have a book on my shelf here, I think. Hey, Kathy. I haven't read it yet. It's one of those books that's been sitting on my shelf. Covenant Theology, a Baptist Distinctive, edited by Earl Blackburn. I know Earl, or at least I used to know Earl. And Solid Ground Christian Books. Solid Ground Christian Books publishes that. Covenant Theology, a Baptist Distinctive. You might want to look at that. Yeah, perhaps Apologia Church or apologia.com. They might have some resources for you there. Alpha and Omega. Yeah, sure. Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Yeah. Well, you know what? I think the best people to ask. I think the best people to ask would be the pastors of the church that you're at, where that brand of theology is being taught. I think that'd be your best bet, sis and brother and sister. Yeah, I think go right to the source. That's the best way to do it, because there's all kind of stripes within covenant theology, and um, various flavors. I think. And so I think your best bet would be to sit down with the pastors and say, we're Reformed Baptists. What do you mean by covenant theology? What is this? I think that'd be your best bet. All right. Why don't we get started? A number of the regulars are in now. Not all of you, but a number of you. Hey, we're going to start right at the top of the hour too. No, that Lars, that is not true. Sorry. Nope. That's not true that you don't need a church. That is not true. That is not true. Um, the Bible doesn't support the idea of a nomadic existence. Uh, we do need the church. We do need the local assembly of believers. We all do. We all do. We need that accountability. We need the authority of the local church in our lives. We need the practice of the one another's that happens within the context of the local church. Um, since the church began, there have been local churches since God gave the Holy Spirit to His people. Yeah, um, you do need a church. Yeah, well, right. I'm not speaking about a building. I mean, a church can meet in a house. A church can meet, in a park. A church can meet in a building with a steeple. But but every believer needs to be part of a biblically constituted fellowship of believers led by biblically qualified elders, where members of the church can practice being the hands and the feet and the eyes and the ears. So, all right, let's begin our time in a word of prayer, and we will get started. Father, I thank you for this day, Lord. I thank you, Father, for your grace and your mercy that you've already shown me today, Father. And I'm sure you've shown my brothers and sisters. I'm thankful, Father, that we can gather this morning around your word and read it together. I pray, Father, that as we work our way toward the end of First Kings today, Father, that as we read these historical accounts, that we would not gloss over them, but we would be actively engaged in the reading of your word, the seeing of your word, the listening of your word. Father, please give us eyes to see the text, ears to hear the text, minds able to understand, to comprehend the text, and hearts willing to believe, Father. Help us to be believers, not merely in theory, but in fact. Please bless the reading of your word this morning, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Spurgeon's morning devotion for February 19th is drawn from Ezekiel 36:37, which reads, "Thus saith the Lord God, I will yet for this be inquired. Let me read that again. Thus saith the Lord God, I will yet for this be inquired of by the house of Israel to do it for them." Spurgeon writes, "Prayer is the forerunner of mercy. Turn to sacred history, and you will find that scarcely ever did a great mercy come to this world unheralded by supplication. You have found this true in your own personal experience. God has given you many an unsolicited favor, but still great prayer has always been the prelude of great mercy with you. When you first found peace through the blood of the cross, you had been praying much and earnestly interceding with God that he would remove your doubts and deliver you from your distresses. Your assurance was the result of prayer. When at any time you have had high and rapturous joys, you have been obliged to look upon them as answers to your prayers. When you have had great deliverances out of sore troubles and mighty helps in great dangers, you have been able to say, I sought the Lord, and he heard me and delivered me from all my fears. Prayer is always the preface to blessing. It goes before the blessing as the blessing's shadow. When the sunlight of God's mercies rises upon our necessities, it casts the shadows of prayer far down upon the plain. Or to use another illustration, when God piles up a hill of mercies, he himself shines behind them, and he casts on our spirits the shadow of prayer, so that we may rest certain. If we are much in prayer, our pleadings are the shadows of mercy. Prayer is thus connected with the blessings to show us the value of it. If we had the blessings without asking for them, we should think them common things. But prayer makes our mercies more precious than diamonds. The things we ask for are precious, but we do not realize their preciousness until we have sought for them earnestly. Prayer makes the darkened cloud withdraw. Prayer climbs the ladder Jacob saw, gives exercise to faith and love, brings every blessing from above. Amen. Amen. Well, we lost a few people. Okay. All right, picking up our reading in 1 Kings chapter 15, God's word tells us this. Now, in the 18th year of King Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, Abijam became king over Judah. He reigned 3 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Maacah, the daughter of Absalom. And he walked in all the sins of his father, which he had committed before him. And his heart was not wholly devoted to Yahweh his God, like the heart of his father David. But for David's sake, Yahweh his God gave him a lamp in Jerusalem to raise up his son after him and to establish Jerusalem. Because David did what was right in the sight of Yahweh and had not turned aside from anything that he commanded him all the days of his life, except in the case of Uriah the Hittite. Now there was war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam all the days of his life. Now the rest of the acts of Abijam and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? And there was war between Abijam and Jeroboam. And Abijam slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city of David. And Asa his son became king in his place. Good morning, Maria. Chapter 15, verse 9. Now in the 20th year of Jeroboam the king of Israel, Asa began to reign as king of Judah. And he reigned 41 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Maacah, the daughter of Absalom. And Asa did what was right in the sight of Yahweh, like David his father. He also put away the male cult prostitutes from the land and removed all the idols which his fathers had made. He also removed Maacah, his mother, from being queen mother, because she had made a horrid image for Asherah, and Asa cut down her horrid image and burned it at the brook Kidron. But the high places were not removed. Nevertheless, the heart of Asa was wholly devoted to Yahweh all his days. And he brought into the house of Yahweh the holy things of his father and his own holy things, silver and gold and utensils. Now there was war between Asa and Baasha, king of Israel, all their days. And Baasha, king of Israel, went up against Judah and built up Ramah in order to prevent anyone from going out or coming in to Asa, king of Judah. Then Asa took all the silver and the gold which were left in the treasuries of the house of Yahweh and the treasuries of the king's house, and delivered them into the hand of his servants. And King Asa sent them to Ben-Hadad, the son of Tabrimam, the son of Hezion, king of Aram, who lived in Damascus, saying, "Let there be a covenant between you and me, as between my father and your father. Behold, I have sent you a gift of silver and gold. Go, break your covenant with Baasha, king of Israel, so that he will withdraw from me." So Ben-Hadad, hey Evan. So Ben-Hadad listened to King Asa and sent the commanders of his military force against the cities of Israel, and struck down Ijon, Dan, Abel, Bethmaachah, and all Chinneroth, besides all the land of Naphtali. Now it happened that when Baasha heard of it, he ceased building up Ramah and remained in Tirzah. Then King Asa caused an announcement to be heard throughout all Judah. None was exempt. And they carried away the stones of Ramah and its timber with which Baasha had been building. And King Asa built with them Geba of Benjamin and Mizpah. Now the rest of all the acts of Asa and all his might, and all that he did in the cities which he built, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? But in the time of his old age he was diseased in his feet. And Asa slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David his father. And Jehoshaphat his son reigned in his place. Now Nadab the son of Jeroboam became king over Israel in the second year of Asa king of Judah. And he reigned over Israel 2 years. And he did what was evil in the sight of Yahweh, and walked in the way of his father, and in his sin, which he made Israel sin. Then Baasha the son of Ahijah, the son of Issachar, conspired against him. And Baasha struck him down at Gibbethon, which belonged to the Philistines, while Nadab and all Israel were laying siege to Gibbethon. So Baasha put him to death in the third year of Asa king of Judah, and became king in his place. Now it happened, as soon as he was king, he struck down all the household of Jeroboam. He did not leave to Jeroboam anyone who drew breath, until he had destroyed them, according to the word of Yahweh, which he spoke by the hand of his servant Ahijah the Shilonite. And because of the sins of Jeroboam, which he sinned, and which he made Israel sin, because of his provocation with which he provoked Yahweh, the God of Israel, to anger. Now the rest of the acts of Nadab and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? Now there was war between Asa and Baasha, king of Israel, all their days. In the third year of Asa, king of Judah, Baasha, the son of Ahijah, became king over all Israel at Tirzah, and reigned 24 years. And he did what was evil in the sight of Yahweh, and walked in the way of Jeroboam, and in his sin, which he made Israel sin. Hi, Emily. Chapter 16. Now the word of Yahweh came to Jehu, the son of Hanani, against Baasha, saying, "Inasmuch as I exalted you from the dust, and made you ruler over my people Israel, and you have walked in the way of Jeroboam, and have made my people Israel sin, provoking me to anger with their sins, behold, I am going to sweep away Baasha and his house, and I will make your house like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat. Anyone of Baasha who dies in the city, the dogs will eat, and anyone of his who dies in the field, the birds of the sky will eat. Now the rest of the acts of Baasha, and what he did, and his might, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel?" And Baasha slept with his fathers, and was buried in Tirzah, and Elah his son became king in his place. Moreover, the word of Yahweh throughout the hand of the prophet Jehu the son of Hanani also came about against Baasha and his household, both because of all the evil which he did in the sight of Yahweh, provoking him to anger with the work of his hands, in being like the house of Jeroboam, and because he struck it. In the 26th year of Asa king of Judah, Elah the son of Baasha became king over Israel at Tirzah, and reigned 2 years. And his servant Zimri, commander of half his chariots, conspired against him. Now he was at Tirzah, drinking himself drunk in the house of Arza, who was over the household at Tirzah. Then Zimri went in and struck him, and put him to death in the 27th year of Asa king of Judah, and became king in his place. Now it happened, when he became king, as soon as he sat on his throne, that he struck down all the household of Baasha. He did not leave a single male, not even any of his kinsmen redeemers or his friends. Thus Zimri destroyed all the household of Baasha, according to the word of Yahweh, which he spoke against Baasha by the hand of Jehu the prophet, for all the sins of Baasha and the sins of Elah his son, which they sinned, and which they made Israel sin, provoking Yahweh, the God of Israel, to anger with their idols. Now the rest of the acts of Elah, and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? In the 27th year of Asa, king of Judah, Zimri reigned 7 days at Tirzah. Now the people were camped against Gibbethon, which belonged to the Philistines. And the people who were camped heard it said, Zimri has conspired and has also struck down the king. Therefore all Israel made Omri, the commander of the army, king over Israel that day in the camp. Then Omri and all Israel with him went up from Gibbethon and besieged Tirzah. Now it happened that when Zimri saw that the city was captured, he went into the citadel of the king's house and burned the king's house over him with fire, and he died, because of his sins which he sinned, doing what was evil in the sight of Yahweh, walking in the way of Jeroboam, and in his sin which he did, making Israel sin. Now the rest of the acts of Zimri, and his conspiracy which he carried out, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? Then the people of Israel were divided into two parts. Half of the people followed Tibni, the son of Ginneth, to make him king, and the other half followed Omri. But the people who followed Omri prevailed over the people who followed Tibni, the son of Ginneth. And Tibni died, and Omri became king. In the 31st year of Asa, king of Judah, Omri became king over Israel and reigned 12 years. He reigned 6 years at Tirzah, and he bought the hill Samaria from Shemar for 2 talents of silver, and he built on the hill, and named the city which he built Samaria, after the name of Shemer, the owner of the hill. And Omri did what was evil in the sight of Yahweh, and acted more wickedly than all who were before him. For he walked in all the way of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, and in his sins which he made Israel sin, provoking Yahweh, the God of Israel, to anger with their idols. Now the rest of the acts of Omri, which he did, and his might which he showed, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? So Omri slept with his fathers and was buried in Samaria, and Ahab his son became king in his place. Now Ahab, the son of Omri, became king over Israel in the 38th year of Asa, king of Judah. And Ahab, the son of Omri, reigned over Israel in Samaria 22 years. And Ahab, the son of Omri, did what was evil in the sight of Yahweh, more than all who were before him. Now it happened as though it had been a trivial thing for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, that he took Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians, as a wife, and went and served Baal and worshipped him. So he erected an altar for Baal in the house of Baal, which he built in Samaria. Ahab also made the Asherah. Thus Ahab did more to provoke Yahweh, the God of Israel, to anger than all the kings of Israel who were before him. In his days, Hiel, the Bethelite, built Jericho. He laid its foundation with the loss of Abiram, his firstborn, and set up its gates with the loss of his youngest son, Segub, according to the word of Yahweh, which he spoke by the hand of Joshua, the son of Nun. Chapter 17. And now Elijah, the Tishbite, who was of the settlers of Gilead, said to Ahab, as Yahweh, the God of Israel, lives, before whom I stand, surely there will be neither dew nor rain these years, except by my word. Then the word of Yahweh came to him, saying, Go away from here and turn eastward and hide yourself by the brook Cherith, which is east of the Jordan. And it will be that you will drink of the brook, and I have commanded the ravens to sustain you there. So he went and did according to the word of Yahweh, for he went and lived by the brook Cherith, which is east of the Jordan. And the ravens were bringing him bread and meat in the morning, and bread and meat in the evening, and he would drink from the brook. Now it happened after a while that the brook dried up, because there was no rain in the land. Then the word of Yahweh came to him, saying, Arise, go to Zarephath, which belongs to Sidon, and remain there. Behold, I have commanded a widow there to sustain you. So he arose and went to Zarephath, and when he came to the gate of the city, behold, a widow was there gathering sticks. And he called her and said, Please get me a little water in a jar that I may drink. So she went to get it. And he called to her and said, Please get me a piece of bread in your hand. But she said, As Yahweh your God lives, I have no bread, only a handful of flour in the bowl, and a little oil in the jar. And behold, I am gathering a few sticks that I may go in and prepare for me and my son, that we may eat it and die. Then Elijah said to her, Do not fear, go, do as you have said, but make me a little bread cake from it first, and bring it out to me. And afterward you may make one for yourself and for your son. For thus says Yahweh, the God of Israel, the bowl of flour shall not be exhausted, nor shall the jar of oil be empty, until the day that Yahweh sends rain on the face of the earth. So she went and did according to the word of Elijah, and she and he and her household ate for many days. The bowl of flour was not exhausted, nor did the jar of oil become empty, according to the word of Yahweh which he spoke by the hand of Elijah. Now it happened after these things that the son of the woman, the mistress of the house, became sick, and his sickness was so severe that there was no breath left in him. So she said to Elijah, "What do I have to do with you, O man of God? You have come to me to bring my iniquity to remembrance and to put my son to death." And he said to her, "Give me your son." Then he took him from her bosom, and carried him up to the upper room where he was living, and laid him on his own bed. Then he called to Yahweh and said, "O Yahweh, my God, have you also brought calamity to the widow with whom I am sojourning by causing her son to die?" Then he stretched himself upon the child 3 times, and called to Yahweh and said, "O Yahweh, my God, I pray you, let this child's life return to him." And Yahweh heard the voice of Elijah, and the life of the child returned to him, and he became alive. Then Elijah took the child and brought him down from the upper room into the house, and gave him to his mother. And Elijah said, "See, your son is alive." Then the woman said to Elijah, "Now I know this, that you are a man of God, and that the word of Yahweh in your mouth is truth." Chapter 18. Now it happened after many days that the word of Yahweh came to Elijah in the 3rd year, saying, "Go, show yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain on the face of the earth." So Elijah went to show himself to Ahab. Now the famine was severe in Samaria. And Ahab called Obadiah, who was over the household. Now Obadiah feared Yahweh greatly. And it happened that when Jezebel was cutting down the prophets of Yahweh, Obadiah took 100 prophets and hid them by 50s in a cave, and sustained them with bread and water. And then Ahab said to Obadiah, "Go through the land to all the springs of water and to all the valleys. Perhaps we will find grass and keep the horses and mules alive, and not have to cut down some of the cattle." So they divided the land between them to pass through it. Ahab went one way by himself, and Obadiah went another way by himself. Now it happened that as Obadiah went on the way, behold, Elijah met him, and he recognized him and fell on his face and said, "Is this you, Elijah, my master?" And he said to him, "It is I. Go, say to your master, behold, Elijah is here." And he said, "What sin have I committed that you are giving your servant into the hand of Ahab to put me to death? As Yahweh your God lives, there is no nation or kingdom where my master has not sent to search for you. And if they said, 'He is not here,' he made the kingdom or nation swear that they could not find you. And now you are saying, 'Go, say to your master, behold, Elijah is here.' And it will be that when I leave you, the Spirit of Yahweh will carry you where I do not know, and will come and tell Ahab, and he will not find you, and he will kill me, although I, your servant, have feared Yahweh from my youth. Has it not been told to my master what I did when Jezebel killed the prophets of Yahweh, that I hid 100 prophets of Yahweh by 50s in a cave, and sustained them with bread and water? So now you are saying, 'Go, say to your master, behold, Elijah is here. He will then kill me.' And Elijah said, 'As Yahweh of hosts lives, before whom I stand, I will surely show myself to him today.' So Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. Now it happened when Ahab saw Elijah that Ahab said to him, 'Is this you, you troubler of Israel?' And he said, 'I have not troubled Israel, but you and your father's house have, because you have forsaken the commandments of Yahweh, and you have followed the Baals. So now then, send and gather to me all Israel at Mount Carmel, together with 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah, who eat at Jezebel's table.' So Ahab sent a message among all the sons of Israel, and gathered the prophets together at Mount Carmel. And Elijah came near to all the people and said, 'How long will you be limping between two opinions? If Yahweh is God, follow him. But if Baal, follow him.' But the people did not answer him a word. Then Elijah said to the people, 'I alone am left, a prophet of Yahweh, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. Now let them give us 2 oxen, and let them choose one ox for themselves, and cut it up, and place it on the wood, but place no fire under it. And I will prepare the ox and put it on the wood, and I will not place fire under it. Then you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of Yahweh, and the God who answers by fire, he is God.' And all the people answered and said, 'That is a good word.' So Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, choose one ox for yourself and prepare it first for you are many, and call on the name of your God, but place no fire under it. Then they took the ox which was given them, and they prepared it and called on the name of Baal from morning until noon, saying, O Baal, answer us. But there was no voice, and no one answered. And they limped about the altar which they had made. Now it happened at noon that Elijah mocked them and said, Now it happened at noon that Elijah mocked them and said, Call out with a loud voice, for he is a god. Either he is occupied or relieving himself, or is on a journey, or perhaps he is asleep and needs to be awakened. So they cried with a loud voice and gashed themselves according to their custom with swords and lances until the blood gushed out of them. Now it happened when noon had passed that they prophesied until the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, but there was no voice, no one answered, and no one paid attention. Then Elijah said to all the people, Come near to me. So all the people came near to him, and he repaired the altar of Yahweh, which had been pulled down. Then Elijah took 12 stones, according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, to whom the word of Yahweh had come, saying, Israel shall be your name. And with the stones he built an altar in the name of Yahweh, and he made a trench around the altar, large enough to hold 2 seahs of seed. Then he arranged the wood and cut the ox in pieces and placed it on the wood. And he said, Fill 4 pitchers with water and pour it on the burnt offering and on the wood. And he said, Do it a second time. And they did it a second time. And he said, Do it a third time. And they did it a third time. And the water flowed around the altar, and he also filled the trench with water. Now it happened at that time of the offering of the evening sacrifice that Elijah the prophet came near and said, O Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, today let it be known that you are God in Israel, and that I am your slave, and I have done all these things at your word. Answer me, O Yahweh, answer me, that this people may know that you, O Yahweh, are God, and that you have turned their heart back again. Then the fire of Yahweh fell and consumed the burnt offering and the wood and the stones and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. And all the people saw it and fell on their faces and said, Yahweh, he is God. Yahweh, he is God. Then Elijah said to them, seize the prophets of Baal. Do not let one of them escape. So they seized them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook Kishon and slaughtered them there. Now Elijah said to Ahab, Go up, eat and drink, for there is the sound of the tumult of rain. So Ahab went up to eat and drink. But Elijah went up to the top of Carmel, and he stretched himself down toward the ground and put his face between his knees. And he said to his young man, Go up now, look toward the sea. So he went up and looked and said, There is nothing. And he said, Go back 7 times. Now it happened at the 7th time that he said, Behold, a cloud as small as a man's hand is coming up from the sea. And he said, Go up, say to Ahab, Prepare your chariot and go down, so that the rain does not stop you. Now it happened that in a little while the sky grew dark with clouds and wind, and there was a heavy rain. And Ahab rose and went to Jezreel. But the hand of Yahweh was on Elijah, and he girded up his loins and outran Ahab unto where you enter Jezreel. Chapter 19. Now Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, So may the gods do to me, and even more, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by about this time tomorrow. And he was afraid, and arose and ran for his life, and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his young man there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a broom tree, and he asked for himself that he might die, and said, It is enough now, O Yahweh, take my life, for I am not better than my fathers. Then he lay down and slept under a broom tree. And behold, there was an angel touching him, and he said to him, Arise, eat. Then he looked, and behold, there was at his head a bread cake, baked on hot stones, and a jar of water. So he ate and drank, and lay down again. And the angel came to him again a second time, and touched him, and said, Arise, eat, because the journey is too great for you. So he arose and ate and drank, and went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mountain of God. Then he came there to a cave and lodged there, and behold, the word of Yahweh came to him, and he said to him, What are you doing here, Elijah? And he said, I have been very zealous for Yahweh. the God of hosts, for the sons of Israel have forsaken your covenant, pulled down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I alone am left, and they seek my life to take it away. So he said, Go forth and stand on the mountain before Yahweh. And behold, Yahweh was passing by, and a great and strong wind was tearing up the mountains and breaking in pieces the rocks before Yahweh, but Yahweh was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, but Yahweh was not in the earthquake. Then after the earthquake, a fire, but Yahweh was not in the fire. And after the fire, a sound of a thin, gentle whisper. Now it happened that when Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood in the entrance of the cave. And behold, a voice came to him and said, What are you doing here, Elijah? Then he said, I have been very zealous for Yahweh, the God of hosts. For the sons of Israel have forsaken your covenant, pulled down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I alone am left, and they seek my life to take it away. And Yahweh said to him, Go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus, and you will arrive and anoint Hazael king over Aram. And Jehu, the son of Nimshi, you shall anoint king over Israel. And Elisha, the son of Shaphat, and Mehalah, you shall anoint as prophet in your place. And it will be the one who escapes from the sword of Hazael, Jehu shall put to death, and the one who escapes from the sword of Jehu, Elisha shall put to death. Yet I will leave 7,000 in Israel, all the knees that have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him. So he went from there and found Elisha, the son of Shaphat, while he was plowing with 12 pairs of oxen before him, and he with the 12th. And Elijah passed over to him and threw his mantle on him. So he forsook the oxen and ran after Elijah and said, Please let me kiss my father and my mother, then I will follow you. And he said to him, Go back again, for what have I done to you? So he returned from following him and took the pair of oxen and sacrificed them and boiled their flesh with the implements of the oxen and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he arose and followed Elijah and ministered to him. Chapter 20. Now Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, gathered all his military force, and there were 32 kings with him, and horses and chariots, and he went up and besieged Samaria and fought against it. Then he sent messengers to the city to Ahab, king of Israel, and he said to him, Thus says Ben-Hadad, Your silver and your gold are mine, your most beautiful wives and children are also mine. Then the king of Israel answered and said, It is according to your word, my lord, O king. I am yours and all that I have. Then the messengers returned and said, Thus says Ben-Hadad, Surely I sent to you, saying, You shall give me your silver and your gold and your wives and your children. But about this time tomorrow I will send my servants to you, and they will search your house and the house of your servants, and whatever is desirable in your eyes they will put in their hand and carry away. Then the king of Israel called all the elders of the land and said, Please know and see how this man is looking for trouble. For he sent to me for my wives and my children and my silver and my gold, and I withheld nothing from him. And all the elders and all the people said to him, Do not listen or consent. So he said to the messengers of Ben-Hadad, Say to my lord the king, all that you sent for to your servant at the first I will do, but this thing I cannot do. And the messengers departed and brought him word again. Then Ben-Hadad sent to him and said, May the gods do so to me, and more so, if the dust of Samaria will be sufficient for a handful for all the people who follow me. Then the king of Israel answered and said, Speak to him. Let not him who girds on his armor boast like him who takes it off. Now it happened that when Ben-Hadad heard this message, as he was drinking with the kings in the booths, he said to his servants, Station yourselves. So they stationed themselves against the city. Now behold, a prophet approached Ahab, king of Israel, and said, Thus says Yahweh, Have you seen all this great multitude? Behold, I will deliver them into your hand today, and you shall know that I am Yahweh. And Ahab said, By whom? So he said, Thus says Yahweh, By the young men of the rulers of the provinces. Then he said, Who shall begin the battle? And he said, You. Then he mustered the young men of the rulers of the provinces, and there were 232, and after them he mustered all the people, even all the sons of Israel, 7,000. And they went out at noon, while Ben-Hadad was drinking himself drunk in the booths with the 32 kings who helped him. And the young men of the rulers of the provinces went out first, and Ben-Hadad sent out, and they told him, saying, Men have come out from Samaria. Then he said, if they have come out for peace, take them alive. Or if they have come out for war, take them alive. So these went out from the city, the young men of the rulers um, of the provinces, and the military force which followed them. And they each struck his man, and the Arameans fled, and Israel pursued them. And Benhadad, king of Aram, escaped on a horse with a horseman, with horsemen. And the king of Israel went out and struck down the horses and chariots, and struck the Arameans with a great slaughter. Then the prophet came near to the king of Israel and said to him, Go, strengthen yourself, and know and see what you have to do. For at the turn of the year, the king of Aram will come up against you. Now the servants of the king of Aram said to him, Their gods are gods in the mountains, therefore they were stronger than we. But rather, let us fight against them in the plain, and surely we will be stronger than they. Do this thing. Remove the kings from each from his place, and put captains in their place. And you shall number a military force like the military force that you have lost, horse for horse and chariot for chariot. Then we will fight against them in the plain, and surely we will be stronger than they. And he listened to their voice and did so. Now it happened at the turn of the year that Benhadad mustered the Arameans and went up to Aphek to fight against Israel. Now the sons of Israel were mustered and were provided for, and went to meet them, and the sons of Israel camped before them like two little flocks of goats, but the Arameans filled the land. And then a man of God came near and spoke to the king of Israel and said, Thus says Yahweh, because the Arameans have said, Yahweh is a God of the mountains, but he is not a God of the valleys. Therefore I will give all this great multitude into your hand, and you shall know that I am Yahweh. So they camped one opposite the other 7 days. Now it happened that on the 7th day the battle was joined, and the sons of Israel struck down of the Arameans 100,000 foot soldiers in one day. But the rest fled to Aphek into the city, and the wall fell on 27,000 men who were left. And Benhadad fled and came into the city into an inner chamber. Then his servant said to him, Behold, now we have heard that the kings of the house of Israel are kings of loving kindness. Please let us put sackcloth on our loins and ropes on our heads, and go out to the king of Israel. Perhaps he will preserve your life. So they girded sackcloth on their loins and put ropes on their heads, and came to the king of Israel and said, Your servant Benhadad says, Please let me live. And he said, Is he still alive? He is my brother. Now the men interpreted this as an omen, and hastily catching his word, said, Your brother Benhadad. Then he said, Go bring him. Then Benhadad came out to him, and he took him up into the chariot. And Benhadad said to him, The cities which my father took from your father I will return, and you shall make streets for yourself in Damascus, as my father made in Samaria. Ahab said, And I will let you go with this covenant. So he cut a covenant with him and let him go. Now a certain man of the sons of the prophets said to another by the word of Yahweh, Please strike me. But the man refused to strike him. Then he said to him, Because you have not listened to the voice of Yahweh, behold, as soon as you walk away from me, a lion will strike you down. And as soon as he walked away from him, a lion found him and struck him down. Then he found another man and said, Please strike me. And the man struck him, wounding him. So the prophet walked away and stood by for the king by the way, and disguised himself with a bandage over his eye. Now it happened that as the king was passing by, he cried out to the king and said, Your servant went out into the midst of the battle, and behold, a man turned aside and brought a man to me and said, Guard this man. If for any reason he is missing, then your life shall be for his life, or else you shall pay a talent of silver. Now it happened that while your servant was busy here and there, he was gone. And the king of Israel said to him, So shall your judgment be. You yourself have decided it. Then he hastily took the bandage away from his eyes, and the king of Israel recognized him that he was of the prophets. And he said to him, Thus says Yahweh, because you have let go out of your hand the man whom I had devoted to destruction, therefore your life shall go for his life, and your people for his people. So the king of Israel went to his house sullen and enraged, and came to Samaria. Chapter 21. Now it happened after these things that Naboth the Jezreelite had a vineyard which was in Jezreel beside the palace of Ahab king of Samaria. And Ahab spoke to Naboth, saying, Give me your vineyard, that I may have it for a vegetable garden, because it is close beside my house. And I will give you a better vineyard than it in its place, if it is good in your sight. I will give you the price of it in money. But Naboth said to Ahab, Yahweh forbid me that I should give you the inheritance of my fathers. So Ahab came into his house sullen and enraged because of the word which Naboth the Jezreelite had spoken to him, for he said, I will not give you the inheritance of my fathers. And he lay down on his bed and turned away his face and ate no food. But Jezebel, his wife, came to him and said to him, How is it that your spirit is so sullen that you are not eating food? So he said to her, Because I spoke to Naboth the Jezreelite and said to him, Give me your vineyard for money, or else, if it pleases you, I will give you a vineyard in its place. But he said, I will not give you my vineyard. And Jezebel, his wife, said to him, Do you now exercise kingship over Israel? Arise, eat bread, and let your heart be merry. I will give you the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite. So she wrote letters in Ahab's name and sealed them with his seal, and sent letters to the elders and to the nobles who were living with Naboth in his city. And she wrote in the letters saying, Call for a fast and seat Naboth at the head of the people, and seat 2 vile men before him, and let them testify against him, saying, You cursed God and the king. Then take him out and stone him, so that he will die. So the men of the city, of his city, the elders and the nobles who lived in his city, did as Jezebel had sent word to them, just as it was written in the letters which she had sent them. They called for a fast and seated Naboth at the head of the people. Then the 2 vile men came in and sat before him, and the vile men testified against him, against Naboth, before the people, saying, Naboth cursed God and the king. So they took him outside the city and stoned him with stones, and he died. Then they sent word to Jezebel, saying, Naboth has been stoned and is dead. Now it happened that when Jezebel heard that Naboth had been stoned and was dead, Jezebel said to Ahab, Arise, take possession of the vineyard, and Naboth the Jezreelite, which he refused to give, the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite, which he refused to give you for money. For Naboth is not alive, but dead. Now it happened that when Ahab heard that Naboth was dead, Ahab arose to go down to the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite to take possession of it. Then the word of Yahweh came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, Arise, go down to meet Ahab king of Israel, who is in Samaria. Behold, he is in the vineyard of Naboth, where he has gone down to take possession of it. And you shall speak to him, saying, Thus says Yahweh, Have you murdered and also taken possession? And you shall speak to him, saying, Thus says Yahweh, In the place where the dogs licked up the blood of Naboth, the dogs will lick up your blood, even yours. And Ahab said to Elijah, Have you found me, O my enemy? And he answered, I have found you, because you have sold yourself to do what is evil in the sight of Yahweh. Behold, I will bring evil upon you, and will utterly sweep you away, and will cut off from Ahab every male, both bond and free in Israel. And I will make your house like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha the son of Ahijah, because of the provocations with which you have provoked me to anger, and because you have made Israel sin. Of Jezebel also has Yahweh spoken, saying, The dogs will eat Jezebel in the district of Jezreel. The one belonging to Ahab who dies in the city, the dogs will eat, and the one who dies in the field, the birds of the sky will eat. Surely there was no one who sold himself to do what is evil in the sight of Yahweh like Ahab, whom Jezebel his wife incited. And he acted very abominably in following idols, according to all that the Amorites had done, whom Yahweh dispossessed before the sons of Israel. Now it happened when Ahab heard these words that he tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and fasted. And he lay in sackcloth and went about despondently. Then the word of Yahweh came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, Do you see how Ahab has humbled himself before me? Because he has humbled himself before me, I will not bring the evil in his days, but I will bring the evil upon his house in his son's days. Chapter 22. Let me do it on time here. Okay. So they lived for 3 years without war between Aram and Israel. Now it happened in the 3rd year that Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, came down to the king of Israel. Then the king of Israel said to his servants, Do you know that Ramoth Gilead belongs to us? But we are sitting still so as not to take it out of the hand of the king of Aram. So he said to Jehoshaphat, Will you go with me to battle at Ramoth Gilead? And Jehoshaphat said to the king of Israel, I am as you are, my people as your people, my horses as your horses. Moreover, Jehoshaphat said to the king of Israel, please inquire first for the word of Yahweh. Then the king of Israel gathered the prophets together, about 400 men, and said to them, shall I go against Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall I refrain? And they said, go up, for the Lord will give it into the hand of the king. But Jehoshaphat said, is there not yet a prophet of Yahweh here, that we may inquire of him? And the king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, there is yet one man by whom we may inquire of Yahweh, but I hate him, because he does not prophesy good concerning me, but evil. He is Micaiah, son of Imlah. But Jehoshaphat said, let not the king say so. Then the king of Israel called an officer and said, hasten to bring Micaiah, son of Imlah. Now the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, were sitting each on his throne, clothed in their royal garments, at the threshing floor at the entrance of the gate of Samaria. And all the prophets were prophesying before them. And Zedekiah, the son of Chenaanah, made horns of iron for himself and said, thus says Yahweh, with these you will gore the Arameans until they are consumed. And the prophets were also prophesying thus, saying, go up to Ramoth Gilead and succeed, and Yahweh will give it into the hand of the king. Now the messenger who went to summon Micaiah spoke to him, saying, behold, now the words of the prophets, as if from one mouth, are good towards the king. Please let your word be like the word of one of them, and speak that which is good. But Micaiah said, as Yahweh lives, what Yahweh says to me, that I shall speak. Then he came to the king, and the king said to him, Micaiah, shall we go to Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall we refrain? And he said to him, go up and succeed, and Yahweh will give it into the hand of the king. Then the king said to him, how many times must I make you swear that you will speak to me nothing but the truth in the name of Yahweh? So he said, I saw all Israel scattered on the mountains, like sheep which have no shepherd. And Yahweh said, these have no master. Let each of them return to his house in peace. Then the king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, did I not say to you that he would not prophesy good concerning me, but evil? Then Micaiah said, therefore hear the word of Yahweh. I saw Yahweh sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing by him on his right and on his left. And Yahweh said, who will entice Ahab, so that he will go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one said this, while another said that. Then a spirit came forward and stood before Yahweh and said, I will entice him. And Yahweh said to him, how? And he said, I will go out and be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. Then he said, you shall entice him and also prevail. Go out and do so. So now, behold, Yahweh has put a lying spirit in the mouth of all these your prophets, but Yahweh has spoken calamity against you. Then Zedekiah, the son of Chenaanah, came near and struck Micaiah on the cheek and said, how did the spirit of Yahweh pass from me to speak to you? And Micaiah said, behold, you will see on that day when you enter an inner room to hide. Then the king of Israel said, take Micaiah and return him to Ammon, the commander of the city, and to Joash, the king's son. Hi, Samantha. And say, thus says the king, put this man in prison and feed him sparingly with bread and water until I come back safely. And Micaiah said, if you indeed return safely, Yahweh has not spoken to me. And he said, listen, all you people. Now we're in 1 Kings 22:29 right now, Samantha. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, went up against Ramoth Gilead. And the king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, I will disguise myself and go into the battle, but you put on your garments. So the king of Israel disguised himself and went into the battle. Now the king of Aram had commanded the 32 commanders of his chariots, saying, do not fight with small or great, but with the king of Israel alone. Now it happened that when the commanders of the chariots saw Jehoshaphat, they said, surely it is the king of Israel. And they turned aside to fight against him, and Jehoshaphat cried out. So it happened that when the commanders of the chariots saw that it was not the king of Israel, they turned back from pursuing him. Now a certain man drew his bow at random and struck the king of Israel in a joint of the armor. So he said to the driver of his chariot, turn around and take me out of the fight, for I am severely wounded. Now the battle raged that day, and the king was propped up in his chariot in front of the Arameans, and died at evening, and the blood from the wound ran into the bottom of the chariot. Then a shout of lament passed throughout the camp close to sunset, saying, every man to his city and every man to his land. So the king died and was brought to Samaria, and they buried the king of Samaria. And they washed the chariot by the blood of Samaria, and the dogs licked up the blood. Now the harlots bathed themselves there, according to the word of Yahweh which he spoke. Now the rest of the acts of Ahab and all that he did, and the ivory house which he built, and all the cities which he built, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? So Ahab slept with his fathers, and Ahaziah his son became king in his place. Now Jehoshaphat the son of Asa became king over Judah in the 4th year of Ahab, king of Israel. Jehoshaphat was 35 years old when he became king, and he reigned 25 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Azubah, the daughter of Shilhi. And he walked in all the way of Asa his father. He did not turn away from it, doing what is right in the sight of Yahweh. However, the high places were not taken away. The people still sacrificed and burned incense on the high places. Jehoshaphat also made peace with the king of Israel. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoshaphat and his might, which he showed, and how he warred, and are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? And the remnant of the male cult prostitutes who remained in the days of his father Asa, he purged from the land. Now there was no king in Edom, a deputy was king. Jehoshaphat made ships of Tarshish to go to Ophir for gold, but they did not go, for the ships were broken at Ezion Geber. Then Ahaziah, the son of Ahab, said to Jehoshaphat, "Let my servants go with your servants in the ships." But Jehoshaphat was not willing. And Jehoshaphat slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of his father David, and Jehoram, his son, became king in his place. Ahaziah, the son of Ahab, became king over Israel in Samaria in the 17th year of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, and he reigned 2 years over Israel. And he did what was evil in the sight of Yahweh, and walked in the way of his father, and in the way of his mother, and in the way of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who caused Israel to sin. So he served Baal and worshipped him and provoked Yahweh, the God of Israel, to anger, according to all that his father had done. All right, I think we'll read 2 Kings chapter 1 at least. Now Moab revolted against Israel after the death of Ahab, and Ahaziah fell through the lattice in his upper chamber, which was in Samaria, and became ill. So he sent messengers and said to them, "Go inquire of Baalzebub, the god of Ekron, whether I will live from this sickness." But the angel of Yahweh said to Elijah the Tishbite, "Arise, go up to meet the messengers of the king of Samaria, and say to them, It is because there is no God in Israel that you are going to. Is it because there is no God in Israel that you are going to inquire of Baalzebub, the god of Ekron? Now, therefore, thus says Yahweh, you shall not come down from the bed where you have gone up, but you shall surely die." Then Elijah departed. So the messengers returned to him, and he said to them, "Why have you returned?" And he said to him, "A man came up to meet us and said to us, 'Go, return to the king who sent you, and say to him, Thus says Yahweh, is it because there is no God in Israel that you are sending to inquire of Baalzebub, the god of Ekron? Therefore you shall not come down from the bed where you have gone up, but shall surely die.'" And he said to them, "What kind of man was he who came up to meet you and spoke these words to you?" And they said to him, "He was a hairy man with a leather girdled about his loins." And he said, "It is Elijah the Tishbite." Then the king sent to him a commander of 50 with his 50. And he went up to him, and behold, he was sitting on the top of the hill. And he said to him, "O man of God, the king says, come down." And Elijah answered and spoke to the commander of 50, "If I am a man of God, let fire come down from heaven and consume you and your 50. Then fire came down from heaven and consumed him and his 50. So he again sent him another commander of 50 with his 50. And he answered and spoke to him, "O man of God, thus says the king, come down quickly." And Elijah answered and spoke to them, "If I am a man of God, let fire come down from heaven and consume you and your 50. Then the fire of God came down from heaven and consumed him and his 50. So he again sent the commander of a third 50 with his 50. Then the third commander of 50 went up and came and bowed down on his knees before Elijah, and he begged him and said to him, "O man of God, please let my life and the lives of these 50 servants of yours be precious in your sight. Behold, fire came down from heaven and consumed the first two commanders of 50 with their 50s, but now let my life be precious in your sight." Then the angel of Yahweh spoke to Elijah, "Go down with him. Do not be afraid of him." So he arose and went down with him to the king. Then he spoke to him, "Thus says Yahweh, Because you have sent messengers to inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron. Is it because there is no God in Israel to inquire of his word? Therefore you shall not come down from the bed where you have gone up, but shall surely die. So Ahaziah died according to the word of Yahweh, which Elijah had spoken. And because he had no son, Jehoram became king in his place in the second year of Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah. Now the rest of the acts of Ahaziah, which he did, are they not written in the books of the chronicles of the kings of Israel? We'll read one more chapter, and that'll give us an even 10. Now it happened when, chapter 2, now it happened when Yahweh was about to take up Elijah by a whirlwind to heaven, that Elijah went with Elisha from Gilgal. And Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here, please, for Yahweh has sent me as far as Bethel." But Elisha said, "Oh, as Yahweh lives, and as your soul lives, I will not forsake you." So they went down to Bethel. Then the sons of the prophets who were at Bethel came out to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that Yahweh will take away your master from over you today?" And he said, "Yes, I know. Be silent." And Elijah said to him, "Elisha, please stay here, for Yahweh has sent me to Jericho." But he said, "As Yahweh lives and as your soul lives, I will not forsake you." So they came to Jericho. Then the sons of the prophets who were at Jericho approached Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that Yahweh will take away your master from over you today?" And he answered, "Yes, I know. Be silent." Then Elijah said to him, "Please stay here, for Yahweh has sent me to the Jordan." And he said, "As Yahweh lives and as your soul lives, I will not forsake you." So the two of them went on. Now 50 men of the sons of the prophets went and stood opposite them at a distance, but the two of them stood by the Jordan. And Elijah took his mantle and folded it together and struck the waters, and they were divided here and there, so that the two of them crossed over on dry ground. Now it happened when they crossed over that Elijah said to Elisha, "Ask what I shall do for you before I am taken from you." And Elisha said, "Please let a double portion of your spirit be upon me." And he said, "You have asked a hard thing. Nevertheless, if you see me when I am taken from you, it shall be so for you. But if not, it shall not be so." As they were going along and talking, behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and it separated the two of them. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind to heaven. And Elisha was seeing this, and he was crying out, my father, the chariots of Israel and its horsemen." And he saw Elijah no more. Then he took hold of his own clothes and tore them in two pieces. He also took up the mantle of Elijah that fell from him and returned and stood by the bank of the Jordan. And he took the mantle of Elijah that fell from him and struck the waters and said, "Where is Yahweh, the God of Elijah?" Indeed, he himself also struck the waters, and they were divided here and there, and Elisha crossed over. Then the sons of the prophets who were at Jericho opposite him saw him and said, "The spirit of Elijah rests on Elisha." And they came to meet him and bowed themselves to the ground before him. Then they said to him, "Behold, there are with your servants 50 excellent men. Please let them go and search for your master, lest the spirit of Yahweh has taken him up and cast him on some mountain or into some valley." And he said, "You shall not send." But when they urged him until he was ashamed, he said, "Send." They sent therefore 50 men, and they searched 3 days, but did not find him. So they returned to him while he was staying at Jericho, and he said to them, "Did I not say to you, do not go?" Then the men of the city said to Elijah, "Behold, now the habitat of this city is pleasant, as my Lord sees. But the water is bad, and the land is unfruitful." And he said, "Bring me a new jar, and put salt in it." So they brought it to him. And he went out to the spring of water, and threw salt in it, and said, "Thus says Yahweh, I have purified these waters, there shall not be from there death or barrenness any longer." So the waters have been purified to this day, according to the word of Elisha, which he spoke. Then he went up from there to Bethel. And as he was going up by the way, young boys came out from the city and mocked him and said to him, "Go up, you bald-headed, go up, you bald head." Then he looked behind him and saw them, and he cursed them in the name of Yahweh. Then two female bears came out of the woods and tore up 42 lads of their number. And he went from there to Mount Carmel, and from there he returned to Samaria. All right, 10 chapters today. Praise the Lord. All right, we will pick up tomorrow morning. Again, being Tuesday, to accommodate men's Bible study, we will get together at, hi, Robin. We will get together at 8 a.m. Central Time, 8 a.m. Chicago time, thereabouts, for our next edition of Bible Reading Fellowship. And again, we'll pick up in 2 Kings chapter 3. Hope you all have a blessed day. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.